Hello, friends. I'm often asked, how do you find the right trading opportunities? Do you sit in front of charts all day? Well, today I'll let you in on a little secret. One of my key approaches is choosing an asset to trade without even looking at the chart. Sounds strange? Perhaps, but it works. I trade on Olymptrade, and it's a great platform, including for this approach. Today, I'll tell you about the two pillars on which it's built: fundamental analysis and news trading. So, what is fundamental analysis? Simply put, it's the answer to the question, why should this price move at all? We don't look at candlesticks and trend lines, but at what's happening in the economy, in companies, and in the world. Imagine you're buying not the euro to US dollar currency pair, but say a stake in the European economy versus the US economy. Your choice will depend on who's doing better. Let's say I hear on the news that the European Central Bank, ECB, is announcing plans to raise interest rates because the economy is growing and inflation is under control. Meanwhile, the US Federal Reserve, on the contrary, is talking about possible policy easing. That's a powerful signal. Why? Because higher rates make the currency more attractive to investors. You can earn more on euro deposits. This means demand for the euro will grow. It's logical to assume that the euro will strengthen against the dollar. Without even looking at a single chart, I already understand. The EUR/USD pair looks interesting for finding entry points for growth. The same goes for stocks. Did Apple release a new breakthrough product, or did Google report record profits? This is a fundamental reason why interest in these companies' shares could increase, and with it, their price. I simply read the news, analytical reviews, and follow economic calendars directly on the Olymptrade platform. It takes time, but it gives insight, not just hope for good luck. The second method is direct news trading. This is even more specific. There are specific times when extremely important data is released. For example, interest rate decisions, inflation data, CPI, or the US non-farm payrolls report, NFP. Here's how it works in my practice. I open the economic calendar. I look for an important event expected today or tomorrow. I determine in advance which asset it will impact. Let's say the US non-farm payrolls report, NFP, is released. Clearly, this will directly impact US dollar pairs, USD/JPY, GBP/USD, etc. I study analysts' forecasts. Let's say the forecast is plus 200,000 new jobs. I don't look at the chart. I wait for the news to be released. As soon as the data is released, I compare the actual data with the forecast. If the actual data is significantly better than the forecast, for example, plus 250,000, this is a strong positive signal for the dollar. This means that with a high degree of probability, pairs where the USD is second, like EUR/USD, will go down, while pairs where it's first, like USD/EUR, will go down, USD/CHF will go up. At this very moment, knowing this logic, I can make a decision. The market reaction to such news is often very sharp and swift, and most importantly, it's logical and predictable and can be caught without complex technical analysis. Now comes the most important step that distinguishes simply hearing the news from a professional approach. I call it putting the puzzle together. One piece of news isn't the whole picture. The true power of fundamental analysis is revealed when you begin to combine multiple factors. Let's give an example. Let's say news comes out that China is reporting record growth in industrial production. Great. This should support the Australian dollar, AUD, because Australia is a key supplier of raw materials for Chinese industry. It would seem that we could expect the AUD/USD to rise. But at the same time, check what your broker is doing. For example, I trade on Olymptrade and always check their news and analysis tabs. And then I see that on the same day, the governor of the Reserve Bank of Australia is giving a speech and talking about risks to the economy and possible monetary easing. What do we have? Two fundamental factors in different directions. Positive from China, pushing the AUD higher. Negative news from the central bank, putting downward pressure on the AUD. This is where real analysis begins. Which factor will prevail? Experience suggests that the central bank's words often outweigh one-off data, so you no longer rush to buy the Australian dollar on positive news from China. You wait, you assess the balance of power. You might even consider a short position on the AUD if the central bank's words are sufficiently dovish. This is the magic of alignment. You don't just react, you understand the context. You begin to see the market not as a collection of random fluctuations, but as a living dynamic system where everything is interconnected: stocks, currencies, commodities, all threads of a single tapestry. This is exactly how I select assets. I look for points where several fundamental factors converge and create a strong logical impulse. It takes practice, but that's what makes trading meaningful. Of course, this method requires preparation. You need to understand which news is truly important and how to interpret it. But it's a great way to discipline yourself and force you to think, not just click buttons. I use this approach in my trading on Olymptrade, and I like how everything is set up there: the clear interface, the prompt display of quotes during news releases, which is crucial. If you also want to start trading more consciously and understand what drives the markets rather than just following the lines, try this approach. Start using fundamental analysis and news trading. To practice, register on Olymptrade. It's a great and convenient platform for traders of all experience levels. The registration link is in the description below this video. Remember that trading always involves risk, so start with small amounts and be sure to learn. Thank you for joining me today. See you in the next videos. Bye.